Hello, good morning. Welcome to this next CYSSDE webinar. My name is Ulrich Selsachts. I'm the Managing Director of an association called ELSEC, and we are the coordinators of the CYSSDE project, which is basically the host of the activities of today. Just a couple of words about CYSSDE basically. CYSSDE is a collaboration of a number of organizations and companies that is actually organizing a number of activities to support the enhancement of the capacity and the capabilities of cybersecurity building in Europe. It's an activity which is supported also financially by the European Commission. And it's a project in this case that started a couple of months ago, actually in the summertime of 2024, and will run for another 3.5 years, more or less. The main activities and results of CYSSDE is organizing a number of what we call open calls. That's basically financial support to third parties. And it's basically there to support organizations like yourselves, likely to get more background in terms of penetration testing and vulnerability assessments, something that was called upon by the European Commission some time ago to support actually the different policy-making activities, or in other terms, things like NIS2, so the new Network and Information Security regulation that has been activated in a number of member states already, and it will be following this year and the next years likely as well. So part of the NIS2 requirements are basically for companies to be more secure, and part of those activities have to do, in this case, with organizing policies, organizing internally your cybersecurity, but equally so checking whether some of the systems are actually also secure and making sure that there is a serious level of visibility on those types of activities. That's basically why vulnerability assessments and penetration tests are useful. Today, we'll be actually talking a little bit more about the way that some of those penetration tests and vulnerability assessments can be used, also from within the perspective of teaching and learning and educating other people within your teams to further improve themselves on the one hand side, but equally so to use those expertises and experiences to test people when they would enter your organization, and to check out how well they're doing, if also the let's say the practical expertise is similar to what they have put on their resumes. And so for that, I have two guest speakers. But before I'll introduce them, I'll expand a little bit more about CYSSDE itself. So this is what you can find also online on the website of cyssde.eu. So it indicates that we have some funds available. In this case, it's up to 200,000 euros in an open call that we propose. And the closing date of this activity is on the 7th of April 2025. This for the first of these types of open calls. Another one similar to this will be organized early next year, so that will be early 2026. For this particular call, we have currently an opening, so you can go to the CYSSDE website and apply for it. And maybe also during the course of this webinar, you can get some additional tips and tricks on how to further improve your application if you are considering applying for this open call. CYSSDE is more than the open calls. It is, of course, mainly about the financial support for pen testing and capacity building. And this is basically where you will find us also in 2 weeks' time with another webinar, which will be going a little bit deeper on this. Or you can find the recorded webinar already on the CYSSDE website that explains how you should be applying and what to expect. Who is CYSSDE? We are a consortium of European organizations, mainly companies with expertise on cybersecurity. But we also have two governmental partners, one being the Spanish NCC, but also CCERT and many different other things called CYBER. And then the other partner is the Romanian cybersecurity strategic advisory body called the NIS2. Both of them basically are supporting the whole program of CYSSDE, putting it into the market. And then we have a number of technical partners, that are day-to-day involved in vulnerability assessments and penetration testing, that offer platforms that help on risk monitoring activities such as CU, and ourselves included in this case, being LSEC, a non-profit organization that's there to really drive the thought leadership when it comes to cybersecurity. For today, we have one of our partners, CYBER RANGES, invited. And CYBER RANGES is a company, and Csaba and James will be explaining you a little bit more, that as the word says itself, is focusing on ranges, and what those ranges are. Those two gentlemen will be able to explain you a little bit further. Finalizing basically what we have on offer as CYSSDE. Of course, we can offer those funds, 200,000 euros. But there's also some methodologies and tooling that we can drive you towards on how to apply for those open calls. And so you can also use these methodologies and tools, of course, if you are and when you're building up your own expertise within your organization, when it comes to building your capacity to be able to do those types of cybersecurity improvement activities. Or you can use some of the scenarios that we are creating within CYSSDE for your range activities. But again, a little bit more about that in just a second. So that brings me to welcoming our two guest speakers of the day, Csaba and James. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good morning. Thank you, Ulrich. Very well.
Good morning. Very well.
Where are you dialing in from, the two of you?
Myself, I'm dialing in from Tallinn, and James?
And I'm dialing in from Spain.
From Spain. Okay, so we're all over the place. But CYBER RANGES is headquartered in Cyprus, isn't it?
Yes, our headquarters is in Cyprus. We have branches all around the world, Estonia, UK, US, and we even have some delivery centers in Africa.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining this morning and taking us also a bit on a ride on the CYBER RANGES experiences and expertises. So how James and Csaba can, in this case, CYBER RANGES be deployed for capacity building and specifically for penetration testing and vulnerability assessments. There's a bit of study work that you gentlemen have been doing on this. Also something that I think we will be able to share shortly through CYSSDE. But take us for a ride a bit on where this fits within the CYBER RANGES activities and how to best utilize that.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. Can you give me a share right? Shall I share or we just talk?
You should be able to share actually automatically.
Oh, now I can. Yes, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can. So take us for a ride. I'll just rephrase to the attendees. If you have any questions, please use the chat function or the Q&A function of the webinar. And in this case, we'll just raise the questions that you might have during or at the end of the presentation of Csaba and James. And in the meantime, if there's anything else, I'll be your moderator and host of the rest of the morning. But take us for a ride, Csaba.
Thank you, Ulrich, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining, and for those who are not here present now, but will rewatch this video later on, thank you for rewatching this video. So I'm Csaba Virag, Head of Strategic Cyber Programs at CYBER RANGES. I have my good colleague James here as our Head of Scenario Foundry and or Range Master. And today we would like to deep dive into CYBER RANGES, especially in the context of CYSSDE. So who we are, what is our background, what do we do, and ideally show you some hands-on examples or use cases where we would like to take this project. So where are we now, and where are we heading it together? And hopefully this is something that some of you who joins the program or benefits from the program, we might be able to work together on. And actually this is something we're really excited about. So those who have no experience or don't know what a cyber range is, basically, we are talking about a synthetic environment, a virtual environment where you can simulate and emulate IT, OT, or any kind of infrastructure that is basically depending on networking and computer communication. We, as Cyber Ranges, as the company, we are an award-winning cyber range platform provider. We have been trusted by many global and well-known organizations around the world. And we offer not just the platform, but obviously we offer services, what this technology and what the platform is capable to deliver, like exercises, trainings, testing and evaluation, virtual twinning, and these kind of activities, along with being strategic partner for several organizations when it comes to any of these activities. These organizations come from all the different domains. Policy making, NGOs, academic partners, obviously the corporate partners with different verticals from critical service providers, governmental providers, and obviously defense and space. So doing all of this for the last decade or so, developing the platform, developing the services, looking at or experiencing and growing together with the maturity of how organizations and the different entities look at or try to manage their cybersecurity posture is something that constantly provides us feedback and new impressions where the world is heading. And based on the experience, we actually boiled it down that many organizations have, when it comes to addressing cybersecurity matters, they focus on, can we adopt a new technology, or what does technological adoption means, and not just in the domain of cybersecurity, so adopting a new cybersecurity tool, but also in regards of digital transformation when they are adopting a new technology that brings potentially new security integration challenges that they will need to address. Just think of, I know it's a hype topic recently, but just think of how integrating AI into everyday work is actually posing security challenges, privacy challenges, procedural challenges when it comes to addressing technological stacks or security policies within any given organization, regardless of the size. Which means that stakeholder alignment needs to be done. What is the interest of business? What is the interest of, let's say, IT or engineering? What is the interest of the employees or the contributors at the company, and obviously how much does it cost. At the end, it will all boil down, okay, if we want to do this is how much it costs. If we want to do that, this is how much it costs. But based on the experience, what we see is the real challenge is actually not this. The real challenge is how cultural transformation can be addressed or measured when it comes to all of these three other topics. So there are efforts between different departments and the different stakeholders, which are not necessarily augmented into the solution. And when it comes to managing incidents or addressing cyber digital transformation matters, the experience matters. So how does the organization perform under pressure? How does the organization preparedness look like when it comes to managing incidents? Are they consider themselves to be future ready? Do they did they ever validate whether the incident response plans or any policies work in a real life situation? So this is where we come from. This is our bread and butter, so to say. And the way we look at ourselves, like it was on the previous slide, we consider ourselves not to be a technological provider or not to be just a service provider. We look at what we do as an enabler. where we can enable different entities and different service providers to perform whatever they do, whatever their core business is, to do that even better and keep the main focus on that, while knowing what should be or could be improved when it comes to their cybersecurity posture, what kind of threats they should address, or what kind of issues they might have that are not threats, but still they need to address, like upskilling or reskilling certain workforce, or certain competence might be missing from certain areas within the organization. And this is where our contribution and partnership with or responsibility within the CYSSDE comes from, where we augment all of this knowledge and experience and bring it on board to the CYSSDE consortia to offer to further synthesize, further elaborate with all the experience that is already present within the CYSSDE consortia as it is, plus then with all the partnerships that we make through the funding rounds, through the new partnerships, through the network that we have as a consortia and as a project. And we start with some kind of foundational activity that you will get an idea what we are trying to do under the CYSSDE, but also we are very much looking into the future, where we will meet even more and more real life use cases that we can integrate into a service offering or into a solution offering that might create even better solutions for even more stakeholders. But who are these stakeholders? So obviously we have the NCCs as key drivers when it comes to national cybersecurity competencies or resilience, or establishing procedures within one member state. We have, because we are talking about NIS2, we have the essential and important entities within the Union and European Union and anyone who are in touch with them. Think about the supply chain. But obviously we would not like to exclude SMEs. So even if somebody is not, or some entity is not falling under the NIS2 directive, I think cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. So we should be able to offer something, not just focusing on the bigger entities with larger purchasing power, with more rigid and solid compliance requirements, but also we should do something where we can elevate those 98% of enterprises that are considered to be SMEs in the EU. We target our services towards pen testers and ethical hackers and red teamers. So in general, anyone who is providing services under the NIS2 or aiming to provide services to meet compliance under the NIS2 directive when it comes to hands-on activities, where simulation environments, trainings, virtual twinning can help these organizations to actually not just to exercise their skills or develop their skills or new methodologies, but also to serve as a meeting ground or a playground for the different stakeholders where they can find each other. Risk managers, CISOs management, their responsibilities in the line of fire. So obviously they need to know what they need to know, and they also need to know what they don't know. So at the end of these exercises or these activities that we do on the cyber range, obviously a comprehensive report that states what is there, what could be further improved, are there any areas that might have been overlooked and should be addressed? So these are the known, unknown, knowns kind of category. We usually provide this kind of blueprint or roadmap where risk managers and the chain of command can look at the current situational awareness or have the situational oversight of what is going on in the organization. And this cannot be done obviously without understanding the people who work at an organization, or not just the people, but also the processes, how these people work together, the different departments, the different suppliers, what is the activity, and can that activity be further streamlined, especially when it comes to actually addressing incidents. So for this, obviously from the technological side, but my good colleague James will talk more about the technical details, how modular from small scale to big scale or large scale, how the platform is capable to address multi-domain situations along with the cross-domain interoperability. Where in the civilian terms, the IT, OT segment, even the crisis management, crisis communication, incident response, policy validation, all of these activities are actually something that can be addressed during the exercises, during the trainings, and the activities where the cyber range as a platform or as a technology is just an enabler. So when it comes to methodology, you will see use cases presented by James, and we will talk about that in a bit. Just a little bit of background when it comes to understanding how we approach these use cases or how we approach human skills development, job-based learning, basically, is on one hand, everybody should understand the world as it is now. So and it should be filtered down to the relevant topics. Somebody active in the EU, in a specific region, Germany, France, doesn't matter, in a specific vertical, let's say energy sector, might face a little bit different challenges than somebody from a different sector like finance compared to energy, or in a different region, let's say Bulgaria compared to France. This is where the cyber threat intelligence or any kind of intelligence feed and assessing the current situation becomes utmost important. So there are generic cyber threats impacting all of us, and then there are sector and or region specific cyber threats that might require specific focus if somebody is operating in that domain or in that area. And having a prepared workforce, having a proper situational awareness can lead to having a better prepared workforce, where not only are they aware of what is going on around the world, but also this can be integrated into the conceptual understanding of regulations, compliance policies, national level, EU level, sectoral level, all these different compliances where risk managers come into the game, how this can be trained. So what are the training requirements to make sure that people are aware of what is expected from them? What are the skills and competencies and abilities required when it comes to performing certain job duties? What is the difference between a SOC analyst or a cyber defense analyst? What is the difference between somebody who's doing, let's say, some kind of development work or engineering work or database related work or AI or whatever? How can this be augmented into a cyber range environment where the training should not feel like a mandatory painful experience going through like an exam kind of or a theoretical learning, but developing a world and creating a world that is mimicking or is replicating or at least is very close to the real world life operational environment, the IT system, the OT system, the network structure, but it's already enriched with CTI, it's already enriched with attack vectors that are replicating real world kind attack. There's a training preparation for that, how to understand what is going on there. It can be replayed, it can be resetted, it can be a single player mode, it can be a multiplayer mode like a team-based activity where we can come together and understand that in our respective roles, how can we counter any kind of challenge. And it doesn't even have to be a cybersecurity issue. It can be just an IT issue, like we had the CrowdStrike event a couple of months ago, which was basically an update related ICT issue rather than a cyber attack. So on the platform, actually, James, I might hand it over to you now to introduce the platform and what we do.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Trevor. Would you like to start with the use cases, and then we'll kind of go into the platform from there?
Sure.
Yeah. So these scenarios are really examples of the sort of use cases we see being really valuable in those in technical roles like pen testers or SOC analysts, engineers, network security engineers, but also operational roles. So essential entity operators, incident response teams, IT/OT administrators, those type of roles. So we have, just to kind of run through some of the interesting examples in this list, we've got incident response and critical infrastructure. So that's a real-time simulation of an IT/OT environment where an APT exploits a vulnerability in the OT firewall to disrupt SCADA operations. We have scenarios around penetration testing for compliance and risk. So these are scenarios, use cases, both for developing skill sets, but also assessing your capabilities in penetration testing methodology, risk reporting, compliance-driven security validation, that type of thing. Just kind of moving down the list, cloud misconfiguration and data exfiltration. So this is around detecting and mitigating cloud security flaws in a multi-tenant environment. So looking to strengthen our cloud security assessments, SOC cloud readiness, and NIS2 compliance strategies. Down onto things like ransomware. So ransomware in a hybrid IT/OT environment, where are we able to contain the ransomware propagating from the IT environment to the OT network, and being able to improve our incident containment strategies around that. And then finally, things like supply chain attack simulations. So a third-party software vendor injects a backdoor, let's say, into a critical system via a compromised software update. Are we able to detect and respond for that threat and track that incident as it unfolds in our environment? So these are kind of some of the specific scenario use cases we think are going to be really valuable to start to build and showcase. So if you're happy now, I can move over to the actual Range platform and share my screen and start to look at what our system actually looks like and what it looks like to interact with these through the system.
Yes, absolutely. Before you do that, just a small background on the platform itself. So what you are going to see now is actually your hosted environment, which is in our cloud environment, where obviously some of our partners or many of our partners are actually using our services. So under the CYSSDE project, this is one of the easiest or typical way how our services will be available through our hosted environment. But because we support different deployment options and various use cases and very sometimes very specific partner requests how our partners would like to utilize or benefit from the range. It can be behind a firewall or in an air-gapped environment. It can be just on-premise. It can be self-hosted in a self-hosted cloud environment, or it can be obviously in our own cloud environment. But the platform itself, as you will see, is basically consisting of multiple modules. One is on the user level, so how you experience the platform as a user when you just go on the platform and you want to interact with a scenario, participate in an exercise or in a training. But obviously in the background we need to have several modules for the scenario creators and composers to be able to actually create a scalable scenario. And this is where the technological difference or the technological importance lies, where we are able to actually create scenarios for quick deployment, quick replayability, and it doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 500 people, because scalability is built in by default. So, James, I stop sharing now and I give the floor to you.
Okay, let me just go ahead and share my screen. Apologies, I've finally got the right setting now, I think. How's that? Can you see my screen okay now?
Yes, all good, all good.
Great. So in order to access our CYBER Range platform, the easiest way is just using your web browser to access our hosted platform or hosted environment. You don't need to install anything. Obviously, you don't need any high-powered computer. You just need to use your local web browser and an internet connection. And we also provide our clients with the option to install the entire CYBER Range platform and the content library behind the firewall in their own air-gapped environment, should they wish to do that. But in the simplest way to get access to the cyber range is to simply visit our publicly hosted environment, which is what we've done in the browser here, set up a user account, log in, and start to interact with the library of scenarios. So we're logged in here, and we're in the dashboard area, and we can start browsing the catalogue of scenarios or use cases available to us. So let's search the scenarios around the sort of use cases that we were describing on the previous slide that we just touched on there. So let's start with supply chain attack. So here we're able to, let's go and click on one of these. We'll go and hit the ICS version here. So here we're able to present the player with an overview of the scenario and its use case, and any prerequisites we recommend before playing the exercise, and also the objectives and the outcomes and what the participants stand to gain from the exercise. And you can see we have an element of gamification built into the platform. So where the exercise has a difficulty rating, this one is intermediate level. It's got an estimated playtime of 5 hours. And this is classified as a cyber challenge, which means that this scenario features an assessment where the player is able to assess their skills in a simulated environment, gather points, and get a score for how well they did in the exercise. But if we go back for a moment, you'll also notice there's quite a few flavors of this particular scenario. This one in particular is a tabletop exercise. This is rated easy with a playtime of around an hour. Tabletop exercises can be played without the need for a simulated network environment behind it, and are played at a much more conceptual level. So in tabletop exercises, we can present the participants with a theoretical crisis simulation, and they can respond, and often as part of team exercises, work on assessment questions and assess their incident response plans, their interdepartmental communications, and also decision-making skills as the simulated crisis scenario plays out. So let's go back to our supply chain attack scenario with our kind of fully virtualized environment behind it. And we'll actually go ahead and go to the running version of that. And so before I start it, I'll just show you here. So we can hit start here to start playing this as a single player. So this allows us the freedom of self-paced learning to play on demand as needed. Or beneath that, we could choose to run this scenario as a multiplayer event. So this is where you really start to see the scalability of the cyber range to bring these realistic scenarios to a wide number of participants. So for, I think, about 8 years now, Cyber Ranges has been partnered with the United Nations ITU, so the International Telecommunication Union, to help them deliver large-scale exercises on our platform to support cybersecurity capacity building in developing regions. So we've got a long history of supporting in-person events where we can schedule our audience to all get together in the same room and have their skills assessed through realistic scenarios with a practical hands-on focus. And just a few months ago, we were the platform of choice for the UAE Cybersecurity Council, who had actually achieved a Guinness World Record for successfully delivering the world's largest lesson on quantum computing. So that had over, I believe, 1,000 attendees from over 110 countries. So that was really great to see the Cyber Ranges platform used to hold that practical exercise at real scale there. And I'm going to show you here. Here's the actual dashboard from one of those event days. We can see on this particular day, we had 90 different teams playing on the exercise. And if we go to the score area, we can see how the top teams progress through the assessment over time, tracking their points on the scoreboard. So handling large-scale events to assess people's skills, whether it's to help them learn about quantum computing, or in our case today, enabling them to assess their cybersecurity practices in terms of compliance around the NIS2 directive. We're not only showing the capability to enable that knowledge share and assessment to happen, but also able to do that at significant scale. So let's for a moment see how it looks for a user to play an exercise in the browser. So I've gone ahead and launched this supply chain attack scenario as a single player. And if we go into the servers area, we'll see the various kind of lists of hosts available for us to interact with this virtual network. So we may want to access our analysis machine, for example. We might want to start to conduct analysis of log files on here, or of forensic artifacts that have been generated. Might want to analyze those here, or even reverse engineer some malicious binaries. You can see we've got a few different tools available on the desktop, such as IDA3, which is a kind of a malware reverse engineering tool, also a hex editor. So whatever tools might be required to help you complete the practical exercise, you'll find these kind of available on the system. So going back to our available services, we've also got things like Velociraptor here. So this is another tool which is accessible as a web service. So this particular tool is extremely useful for conducting remote digital forensics tasks over the network. So everything, again, is quick and easy to access through the web browser, so we can take part in the exercise. And depending on the objectives of the scenario, it's likely you're going to have an assessment to complete as well, where you get to test your capabilities against the simulated adversary. So in this case, you can see we've got 50 questions here. And the first being a multiple choice about identifying whether the initial attack vector was one of these particular vectors. So in this case, we know it's a phishing kind of initial point of access. So we can go ahead and submit our answer. And now you'll notice if we go to the score area, we've actually got some points on the board now, so we can start tracking our progress through this particular exercise. So let's move over to a different scenario now and actually look at what the virtual networks look behind this one. So let's go over to one here. So this one is called Operational Technology Detecting Attacks. And you can see in the objectives section, here we learn the scenario is focused on understanding the security risks associated with firmware in ICS environments. And the participant will dissect and analyze Modbus communications. They will craft detection rules by analyzing network packets in Wireshark, and also use a tool called Suricata for detection of attacks. If we switch to the cloud template to see what the network actually behind it looks like, you'll see we've got these various subnets of the segregated network. Some of the hosts sit in the IT department of the network. Some of the hosts sit more in the operational technology part behind another firewall. But the level of complexity in the network, or the level of realism, will vary depending on the scenario you choose to play and the objectives you hope to achieve as part of the exercise. So for the what I'd call ultimate realism, we are capable of integrating physical and virtualized components to replicate industrial control system environments with high fidelity. So for your physical layer or hardware in the loop, you can connect the environment to physical real-world sensors and actuators and PLCs, so your programmable logic controllers. And then from within the cyber range, you'll have your virtualized layer with your SCADA HMI emulation. So your virtualized SCADA systems with HMIs mirroring some real-world dashboards for process virtualization. So that type of setup can allow us to attack physical PLCs and sensors without obviously any operational risk. And we can actually practice containment of ransomware in HMI PLC environments, for example. But if we don't have access to physical components, we can instead lean into scenarios built on fully virtualized end-to-end ICS environments as well. So we can focus on rendering the systems via a collection of virtual hosts and browser-based virtualization. So let's go ahead and start this scenario here. This will just take a moment to start up. So in this scenario I'm launching, we're able to assess our capabilities in responding to an attack against an industrial control system. We have monitors and control on large-scale systems such as fuel pumps and boilers. There are various virtualized sensors with PLCs. You can see on the high-level diagram of the infrastructure there. So let's go in and see what the actual virtualization in action looks like on the HMI server itself. So this will just take another moment or so to finish off loading. There we go. And then once we launch this, we're going to go into the servers area, have a quick look at what servers are available to us, and then have a quick look at the virtualized HMI server. Okay, so let's go into our server area, access our master server HMI here. Just give it a moment to boot up. There we go, finally running. So what we're looking at here is basically a virtualized industrial control system running. So you can see on the left, we've got our fuel flow visible. It's currently at 25%. The water boiler pressure above that is stable and green, and everything is running smoothly at the moment. So if we go back to our dashboard here and go into injections, this is where we can actually launch our attack from, so our automated attack against the system. So typically this can take a bit of time to run, so we might have to give this a moment just for the attack to come through. But when it does finally come through, what we'll start to see is a change in the system once that attacker's command actually reaches the various key components. So what we're looking for is essentially when the attacker's commands reach the fuel flow valve on the left, that will increase that valve up to 150%, and it will basically exceed the safe operating levels. So we'll start to see the system respond to that. And then when that happens, that will in turn will obviously cause kind of virtual burner overpressure. And then we're risking kind of mechanical failure, combustion instability, and eventually the trigger will kind of cascade faults and emergency shutdown messages will start to be presented and so on. There we go. You can just see it's happened on the left now. That fuel flow has gone up there, and now you'll slowly see this water boiler pressure rise. And when it actually reaches as far as the red segment, it will start to give us various warnings about instability and so on. So if we were a SOC analyst or an ICS engineer, we can use these sorts of use cases to assess our ability to respond to these incidents. And in this case, our objective might be to understand how the systems were compromised, so we can start to look into that. Sorry, Csaba, did you want to offer something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask you to maybe also highlight the recently we had many requests when it comes to cyber physical engagements. So how to actually get more IT people introduced to the OT, and also how OT people should maybe familiarize themselves a little bit more with the cyber principles or the cyber effects that might happen. Could you tell a little bit more about this, the integration of this scenario, for example, into an IT related cyber scenario?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you another example. If we just dig in here, just to kind of finish off where this particular scenario is going. In this case, the next phase would be that you would start to access network system logs, and you would figure out actually how this attack occurred and various ways in which you could have potentially prevented that. And then you could start to provide your questions in here. So in this case, then start to answer information about what protocols used for communication between the systems, and ultimately finding the message the attacker sent to the controllers, which caused the system failure. So let's have a look at some other scenarios, which, as you say, has more of a blend of IT infrastructure and OT infrastructure as well. So here's another example. This is a threat emulation scenario showcasing an espionage operation against IT infrastructure of a nuclear power plant. So again, let's have a look at the some of the cloud template behind that. And if we move over to, you can see it's a fairly complex network again, this one. And if we move over to the injections, this is actually a multi-stage attack that starts with a phishing email being sent into the kind of the IT part of the network, spear phishing email with a malicious payload. That gets executed, and then from that point, that's the initial access into the corporate environment. The automated attack unfolds. The attacker carries out further reconnaissance across the environment, elevates their privileges, moves laterally across the network through the systems, and eventually ends up into other critical systems and the OT environment. So often in our scenarios as well, the attacker for final phase of the attack might be to deploy ransomware across the compromised systems, or fully encrypt files and cripple key systems in the environment as well. So as incident responders or SOC analysts, our objective in an exercise like this is obviously to review critical system logs, maybe reverse engineer malicious binaries or payloads to the systems, and unravel how that APT infiltrated the system and work again to secure that environment. And if we move over to the assessment area, this one's quite an interesting one, because this one actually has 3 different tiers of assessment we can play at. So basically we can play this scenario at multiple levels of difficulty or complexity. So we can assess different parts of our skill set against the simulated attack. And once we've seen a few examples of these scenarios there, we can really start to focus on different areas of our building our skill sets and testing our different teams and their capabilities. So now we've seen a few examples there. These kind of enable us to assess skills against realistic simulated attacks. But now let's look at scenarios where we might be targeting an audience of penetration testers, for example. So the objective could be to enhance our penetration testing methodologies and also risk reporting and validation strategies. So let's go back to our dashboard here and just go into our career paths. So these are curated lists of scenario use cases that allow penetration testers, for example, to carry out self-paced learning to validate and assess their skills for compliance reasons, for example. So if we go into senior penetration tester here, so you can see here, we've got a range of ways to assess our skills on particular topics like Active Directory, for example. Or we might want to take on an entire penetration testing series. So then we might take on something like Citadel. So this series is designed for penetration testers and red teamers and security professionals who want to deepen their understanding of real-world attack techniques. And these practical scenarios or labs, these provide a realistic hands-on practical experience for everyone, so you can grow and assess and validate your skills by targeting and exploiting vulnerabilities within the Citadel corporate environment. So this particular series covers many days worth of content and assessments focused around multiple realistic environments, and there's a real kind of depth of knowledge gained and value added for working through scenarios and use cases like this. So that's probably a good time to hand back to yourself, Joe. I think that was a rough kind of platform overview for what it looks like as a user perspective, also from the author perspective, looking at the back end of scenarios, and also how some of the use cases might look to support things like NIS2 compliance.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Very, very thorough. Absolutely. Some thoughts on where we are going with this together with CYSSDE. So obviously what you saw here is something that we were already ready to show you. So this is what is either already existing on the cyber range or some components that were work in progress that highlight the vector or the direction where we are heading and what we are planning to offer. Looking a little bit further down the road, what we see happening is actually converging these two areas, where we say that one part is much more focused on the threat hunting and the SOC analyst aspect, while the other part is actually focusing on the enhancement of the penetration testing or the vulnerability assessment domain. And in the middle, we have the entities, we have the organizations who would like to have a better understanding of their situational awareness and their operational environment cyber readiness, which means that these use cases that we just showed are not only, let's call them sector agnostic, because many of the use cases can easily be ported to the different sectors, but also they throughout the years, there's an accumulation of experiences and network and then environmental design that enables newcomers or latecomers, late people or organizations joining later, to still benefit from the experience that has been acquired throughout the year, to hone skills on an environment that are actually replicating or mimicking European critical or essential and important operators infrastructure, the interconnectedness, the supply chain effect, what happens when there is something happening, let's say, in the energy sector, what happens to the healthcare sector or the logistical sector when that comes. So all of these improvements we hope to be able to offer under the CYSSDE umbrella throughout our synthetic environment or CYBER range environment as something that is a solid core foundational element where our partners together with us or on their own, depending on our ways of collaboration, they can actually start to build their own little knowledge domain and knowledge pool that they can utilize, they can automate, and they can exploit to their own benefit. So that being said, I think I hand the floor back to you, Ulrich, and obviously if there is any question, I see one under the QA chat, which is, can cyber range activities be funded through the 200K call for pen testing? I will leave this to you, Ulrich. You're more knowledgeable in this. You're muted.
Thank you very much for noticing that. I am muted because I didn't want to interfere and bother you. Thanks very much, and thank you also, Joanna, for the question. It's actually a very interesting question, and to be perfectly honest, we haven't thought of this. So in principle, the answer is yes. Now, having said this, there's of course a couple of considerations to be made here. So maybe ask you, firstly, in this case, also Csaba and James. So if a company would like to deploy this into their own environments, or that they just want to deploy it to actually do the, let's say, the settings the way that you suggested them to, how could they do that from within the CYBER Ranges platform at this point in time? Can they simply go and set up an account or ask for an account and then have it being deployed? Is there a sort of a trial mechanism, or how would it be able to work?
I thank you for that. I think we should differentiate between actually using the platform and deploying the platform. So using the platform, you can go to the app.cyberranges.com or just cyberranges.com. It will be redirected, and you can immediately start with a free account and experience whatever free content. We call them community content. That is there available. There is loads of scenarios and activities.
And also the CYSSDE scenarios are also under that umbrella.
Yes. It's under EU funding, so it will be offered for free. When it comes to more personalized or more or engagements that are actually targeted towards more specific sectors or vectors or tailored needs, or somebody wants to have an actual deployment. By deployment, I mean that either in our own hosting environment, we create a separate environment, or we deploy it on-premise, self-hosted, whatever. That requires a little bit more, not only a commercial agreement, more solid commercial agreement, but also there's a learning curve, and also there are the use cases why somebody would like to have this. And this requires, we usually advise it to partners with a higher cybersecurity maturity, where they already know what they will do, because having a cyber range is just a tool. Utilizing it is where the difference is being made, but we provide through our platform full control over all the environment, administering the users, providing different learning passes, capabilities, multi-tenant activities. So that's a whole new world, I would say. Majority of our clients, to be transparent to everyone, majority of the clients or partners don't actually need to own the range. They just need the benefit of the range, which is much more lighter on the financial and additional resource wise, because it's not just about money. If you own a range, you also need to have people who actually understand what should be done there, which requires a separate pool of people and talent and the availability of those people.
Thank you very much, Chava, for answering the question. And by this, I think we have also partially answered Johanna's question. So there's on the one hand side, there's the free and open source capabilities that can be used. So therefore, you don't need, in this case, the 200,000 euros to fund this. However, you can use the 200,000 euros funding to actually put down resources to deploy, in this case, within your own teams, the range training, also on the free accounts, and then basically start experimenting, in this case, with it on the different scenarios as being presented. So that helps training your people, and so you can definitely increase on the skills of your people. And those people then can be used to do the actual vulnerability assessments and penetration testing, as we are requiring you to do within the CYSSDE activities of the open call. So that is an example of how you can deploy it. Another way to do this and to use the funds. And so, yes, you can use the funds to actually go and license, in this case, for instance, this platform or other platforms. But of course, we prefer you using this platform and licensing this platform, and basically develop your own, and then expand from this your own way inside of the developments and deployments that you have to do within the CYSSDE activity. So the fundamental challenge for you remains the same. That is that we need to get the visibility in the CYSSDE open call on the pen tests and the vulnerability assessments that you will be performing. The way that you would be spending the funds in this case is entirely up to you, as long as you can defend, of course, how they will be deployed and how they will be put to use. But if it's really to train new people, if it's really to help also your end customers, for instance, to be trained on the activities and get them to be engaged in this case, I think it's a very good way of thinking on how we would like to see the CYSSDE funds to be deployed. So again, thank you very much for the question. Then I see there's another point from Geert. When will the CYSSDE content be available on CYBER RANGES? Question mark.
Yes, well, we plan to roll out in the upcoming months. So I believe we have a deadline somewhere not later than Q1, but I think it will be a gradual rollout. As soon as we have the different categories ready, we will just push out. And we hope to get actually feedback on that. So something that we can learn from. And also, obviously, there is a market research and the situational awareness on our end. What is missing from the market? What is that can be easily deployed and used without a steep learning curve? But also, we would like to understand everybody, all the different stakeholders who might benefit from this. So please keep an eye out on it and feel free to communicate. You can even send us ideas that, hey, this is something I did not find on the market. Would you guys be ready to do it for the greater community? We would be really happy to receive such feedbacks.
So 2 points there. If the participants here today allow us to do so, we can basically inform you by email when the contents are available. We will do that definitely also through the CYSSDE website, and obviously also through the CYBER RANGES website, and definitely also use different social media means to inform people. And finally, definitely also we are developing as we speak an CYSSDE community, which is there specifically to support vulnerability assessors and pen testers, both organizations and on a personal level, on different developments happening. So we'll use the community platform in any case as well to collect those types of feedbacks and insights and suggestions in this case also for further developments. But that's also the better way to basically deploy the fact that the contents are going to be available. So I think through many different channels for sure, we'll keep you posted. And as Shaba was saying, definitely also follow us through the activities on the publications on the website. So okay, thank you very much for that, both of you. Maybe an additional question from my end. So the KISI activities will continue for some time, so at least another 3 and something years. Do we foresee that there will be potentially other scenarios that we can add during the course of, let's say, the KISI project, and so that people are continuously building on those?
Definitely. So it's even in our non-KISSDE business model, where we are actually constantly updating available scenarios and use cases. So that's something that we plan to do for sure, especially once we roll out and we hope to get some traction and feedback, we can start to incorporate those feedbacks. So I think even though we are a cyber range vendor and obviously we live from services that we sell, we do believe that without actually giving content, valuable content, well, not away, that's not the right term, but giving content to our partners that they can start to use and integrate, without that we will actually not reach a proper cybersecurity resilience anytime soon. So like I said, cybersecurity is a shared responsibility.
Okay, I think that makes perfect sense. Thank you very much, Csaba. So maybe one final question, unless there's additional questions being asked in the Q&A or the chat. So if people are planning to deploy and to actually start using, in this case, the platform, and if they are considering actually also to deploy it in a wider way to start learning their teams and support activities, is there a way that they can also get some additional support from you guys, or maybe also through our KISSDE activities?
Yes, absolutely.
How would that work?
So typically when we partner up with someone, then we have a dedicated customer service line. If it's under some kind of free approach or free umbrella community type of engagement, then we have a dedicated customer service for that as well. That might come with a little bit slower. By slower, I mean within a day kind of response. So there is support for that. If there is a support needed for specific activities, somebody would like to set up an engagement like an exercise, or understand how they can create some kind of learning path to address specific organizational requirements, then obviously reaching out to us helps, and then we see what we can do about it. How can we create some kind of customization or some kind of cooperation there? Many cases are actually, there are only a few organizations who are fully confident and they know what they want to do. In many cases, or partners, regardless of what kind of organizational background they have, they very much appreciate if we are there and guide them through the process of what makes sense to do and what is it that, just because it's in the news or somebody has an idea, might not have the same impact in their given organizational environment.
Cool. I don't see any further questions, so we're also reaching the hour. So thank you very much, Jens and Csaba, for sharing this with us today, and under the support of KISSDE, and thanks also for being great partners in the KISSDE project. And we're looking forward in having more people, of course, utilizing the activities that we foresee within KISSDE. Maybe just as a final thing, as a sort of a short reminder, this is a webinar that we are trying to do on a weekly basis. It's basically part of a series, and unfortunately we didn't have, let's say, finally somebody for last week, but they have been postponed to somewhere in the very near future. So hereby, just a reminder that if you have been subscribed to this one and you indicated that you also would like to be participate in the follow-up ones. Next one will be next week, Monday, 3rd of March. And there will be specifically on the legal constraints of penetration testing and vulnerability assessments through our partners, the Cybersecurity Strategy Office of Romania, the NIS2. And they've been doing a study specifically on the different types of legislation and regulations that are related to what is needed and what can be done. And giving some indications to definitely companies out there like yourselves, which are operating this on a daily basis. So giving you a little bit of the judicial context, if you like, especially useful when you're reaching out to your partners and customers. And then a little bit further down the line on 10th of March, we have our second and probably also final, unless there's more reactions coming in, view on the open call activities. So that's basically following up on the first announcing webinar that we did for the open call 2. So basically the funds for the 200,000 euros. During this webinar, we'll be focusing a bit on some of the questions that we received. And so we'll be publicly answering some of those questions, basically your review Q&A. But also giving some indications and some tips and tricks on how to further improve the application based upon what we are seeing that companies and people are entering today as part of the application. So our recommendation to all of the people participating or wanting to participate is try to complete as much as possible by next week in your application forms, and so that we can give a bit of an indication on where things might have been misinterpreted and need to be slightly revised, or where we might be able to give you some tips and tricks on how to further improve what you have been suggesting. And then on March 17th, sorry, we'll be focusing a little bit on doing a deep dive on vulnerability assessments and pen testing together with Resilion, the way it's called here. But it will be actually going into the assessments of appliances, devices, if you like, and getting some results of how that looks like. Part also of activities that are required under the Cyber Resilience Act. Maybe not yet for tomorrow, but in any case for the near future. And then by March 24th, we have our partner in CYBER, specifically the CSIRT teams that will be looking into sharing some ideas and thoughts on how basically you can increase cyber resilience by understanding vulnerabilities that are being discovered. So this way everything fits nicely together. So with this, just as your next steps with CYSSDE is of course to start identifying known and unknown vulnerabilities in yours or your clients' organizations. Start developing the open call application. Definitely sign up for the CYSSDE activities, which you have been doing already. We'll be launching the CYSSDE community very shortly from here on. But for sure, making sure that that you can participate in there. And of course, not to forget here in this case, thanks to our colleagues from CYBER RANGES, use the free accounts for the CYBER RANGES platform and start using some of the scenarios that we have been developing in this course, and do also give us feedback on these. So if you have any further questions, then please do reach out to us as well from within the CYSSDE coordination team. Happy to further support you or give you further advice. In the meantime, I thank you very much for your attention and interest, and I hope to be able to see you again next week in our next webinar. For the rest of, have a good week and have a good continuation of the day. And thank you again, James and Csaba, for hosting us together.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.